Mark Rogers TV, time to talk some Alabama football. We are the voice of college football, so please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, the audio versions of our conversations with the best bloggers and broadcasters in the nation can be found on iTunes, Podbean, and Stitcher. We bring in Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. You can also join him on his show, The Way It Is, Fox 97.9 weekdays. Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing well, man. Finally excited, Mark, that Nick Saban, Alabama head football coach, finalized his coaching staff for 2018 on last week. I mean, it took him almost 2 months to get this coaching staff finalized. I remember he was in Mobile during the Senior Bowl, and a lot of media pundits wondering when was the coaching staff going to be finalized, who replaces who, and Nick Saban basically stating, once I get a release, I will let you know. Or when I feel like telling you, I will tell you. So Nick Saban putting on his mad scientist persona, and he waited until last week, the latter part of last week, that being Thursday, to unveil, release, reveal the finalization of the 2018 coaching staff.
All right, so Stephen, in regards to what's changed, what's been adjusted, who's been added, who's departed, kind of run down for us the highlights and what we need to know that differs from 2017 now to 2018.
Well, for starters, Brian Dable, who was the offensive coordinator for Alabama just a season ago, coming from the New England Patriots and a number of other National Football League teams. He is back in the NFL, and Michael Locksley takes over an offensive coordinator. Josh Gaddis, who served at Penn State this past season as the passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach, he is now at Alabama also as the co-offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach. Brent Key remains the same at offensive line coach. Burton Burns, who had been the running backs coach for Alabama for 11 years, one of the longest tenured coaches under Nick Saban. Burns now moves to an off-field role. He will serve as the assistant athletics director for football operations. Joe Panunzio, who was the special teams coach last year, will take over at running backs coach, which makes Jeff Banks, of whom Alabama brought in from Texas A&M, he will be the special teams coach and tight ends coach. Flipping this now over to the defensive side of the football, Carl Dunbar, who was the defensive line coach a season ago, is now back in the National Football League with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That brings in Craig Kulagowski, who was a longtime assistant at Missouri. I spent the last 2 years at the University of Miami. Kulagowski, the defensive line coach and associate head coach. We go back to offense for just a moment here. I forgot a very critical name, Dan Enos, who was the wide receivers coach at Michigan. It was supposed to be the wide receivers coach at Michigan. Nick Saban poaching him from the Maize and Blue, and Jim Harbaugh. Enos will take over as the associate head coach and quarterbacks coach, working with the likes of Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. So back to defense now. After mentioning Craig Kulagowski, Tosh Lupoi, after being a defensive recruiting intern at Alabama, then an on-field coach, an outside linebackers coach, and co-defensive coordinator, he will serve as the head defensive coordinator, the head defensive play caller, while still remaining an outside linebackers coach. Pete Golding, of whom the Tide brought in from University of Texas, San Antonio, he will serve as the co-DC and inside linebackers coach. Carl Scott, Alabama bringing him from Texas Tech University, will serve as defensive backs coach, replacing the departed Derek Ansley, who goes to the National Football League for the Oakland Raiders. So as it stands right now, the new additions were Craig Kulagowski, Dan Enos, Josh Gaddis, Carl Scott. Those basically, Jeff Banks also, those basically your new additions. Some of your promotions, I should say, you would have Michael Locksley, Tosh Lupoi, and also Burton Burns moving to an off-field role.
I wonder if Dan Enos actually received a paycheck from the University of Michigan. Did the man earn a paycheck from the University of Michigan?
I don't think he did, Mark. You would have to actually coach a game. Now, he's
Or a
kind of like,
practice.
or practice, true. He's kind of
Something.
like in that Mike Price role. Mike Price, the former Alabama coach who never coached a game. Now, Enos' situation is different from Mike Price. Mike Price had a little off-field rendezvous that we'll not get into, but Dan Enos, he actually left for a higher pay grade. So a much different situation than Mike Price, but no, definitely not. Dan Enos did not receive one iota of a paycheck in Michigan.
Well, that's a lot of names flying around. So I'm glad I've got it recorded. For all the time that you've covered Alabama football and as closely as you do, can you remember this kind of turnover at any time?
No. I mean, this comes after a win. I mean, most of the time, Mark, and I've mentioned this to you before, when you see this type of turnover, it comes from after a loss or you didn't meet your dream, your goal, your quota, to use a general store term. But Alabama met its goal. Now, yes, it came with some injuries. It came with some friction at times, but the goal was met, and the goal being a national championship. So seeing all these guys leave out and Nick Saban having to bring a new wave of talent in. Now, of course, some of that rumor was the coaches that were already in pocket, the guys like Daboll and Pruitt and among the others, kind of dragged their feet as far as recruiting is concerned. And Alabama did not land a lot of the guys that wanted to land, and the new names being brought in was able to salvage this 2018 class, so to speak. But the 2019 recruiting cycle is going to be very pivotal for the University of Alabama, seeing how close to half or a little bit over half of the ESPN 300 guys, of the Rivals 150, 200 guys, or however many guys are in Rivals, the bulk of the talent will come from the state of Alabama for the 2019 class. When you talk Talua Tagovailoa, Tua's younger brother, who plays at Thompson High School in Alabaster, which is an hour outside of Tuscaloosa. And you've got Pierce Quick, a 2019 offensive line commitment, 5-star out of Hewitt-Trussville High School in Birmingham. Then there's Paul Tyson, who's the great-great-grandson of Paul Bear Bryant. He's the quarterback over there at Hewitt-Trussville. So 2019 is a big, big class as far as talent in the state of Alabama is concerned. Saban wanted to capitalize on that talent, which was the reason why he got a lot of that fresh, hot, young blood in the Tuscaloosa.
Alabama football talk coming your way, courtesy Mark Rogers TV. And of course, we couldn't do it without Stephen F. Smith of Touchdown Alabama, also his show on Fox 97.9, The Way It Is. So, Stephen, with all that coaching turnover, guys are probably walking around the complex not knowing who just walked by them, but these guys mix it up in the weight room and they're around to introduce themselves, and of course team meetings to do the formal introductions. But once you get on the practice field, that's a completely different dynamic. Alabama will be doing that shortly here in the next couple of weeks. So you talk about a different environment, different coaches all over the place with different approaches, different techniques. I got to think with the head man in place, not a whole lot's going to change in regards to structure of the practices, but in regards to a voice at that particular position, positional unit, and all of that, boy, a lot of change for these guys to have to take in.
It's definitely an adjustment, and especially with, you talk about the two biggest names of the bunch, Mark, Craig Kuligowski, defensive line coach, and Dan Enos, working with quarterbacks. You know, Kuligowski is a guy that he takes 2- and 3-star kids and molds them into being 5-star guys and NFL-like talents. You look at his time at Missouri, you know, Shane Ray, Coney Ealy, Sheldon Richardson, Marcus Golden, Harold Brantley, a lot of those guys weren't 5-star kids. And now for Kuligowski, he walks into a situation where, you know, Alabama's a machine. You got nothing but 4- and 5-star talent. So his ability to mold that and work with that, guys like Isaiah Buggs, Quentin Williams, Brian Ray, Raekwon Davis, that will be very interesting And then also with Dan Enos and his ability to take a lot of that average run-of-the-mill talented quarterback, Cooper Rush, Ryan Radcliffe at Central Michigan University, of course at Arkansas, Brandon and Austin Allen, and helping those guys become NFL caliber quarterbacks. Well, now you have a Jalen Hurts, a Tua Tagovailoa, a Mac Jones, and I understand a lot of people look at, well, Tua definitely has to be the quarterback next fall. I mean, did you watch the national championship game and how he performed? And yes, he made plays, put on an absolute show, but we all know how Nick Saban is. He's going to play this out to the end of fall camp and see, okay, which quarterback really has it. Now, of course, Saban already pretty much has an idea of which quarterback has it, and a lot of people in the Alabama media circle knows who pretty much have it, but speculation is a part of college football, and they're going to play this out until the end of fall camp, and then Saban will make his play. But the position group I'm actually the most excited about is this offensive line under position coach Brent Key. Brent Key literally has a group that, if he plays this right, Mark, could rival the group that Alabama had under Nick Saban in 2011 and 2012, and a group that had Barrett Jones, probably the most decorative offensive lineman in Alabama history, and you pair him with Chance Warmack, DJ Fluker, William Vallejos, Anthony Steen, Cyrus Kwanjo, Ari Kwanjo. That was a group that, before the first wave of defenders can touch a running back, you're getting 5 to 6 yards a carry. A.J. McCarron, both years, 2011 and 2012, completing at least 60%. We're talking 2012, nearly a 3,000-yard passing season, 2,933 yards, 30 touchdowns to just 3 picks. And Jeff Stoutland, who was the coach of that group, one of the best in the game, Stoutland, a Super Bowl winner for the Philadelphia Eagles this past year in the NFL, being the offensive line coach there. So when you talk Brent Key and you're bringing back Jonah Williams, Ross Pierschbaker, Matt Womack, Nestor Cotton, Jedrick Wills, Alex Leatherwood, especially if Wills and Leatherwood both start, Brandon Key, Josh Casher, just a multitude of talent on that offensive line. Very excited to see what Brent Key and that group can do in spring ball.
We've got Alabama football talk for you, courtesy Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama. Join him on his show, The Way It Is, Fox at 97.9 as well. We pointed you toward the spring. Stephen, I got to say, a recent a subject for you and topic has been that offensive line. You grab that offensive line immediately to talk up the offensive line, and you're just intrigued by what's going to happen up there.
This can be a very big group, Mark, I'm telling you, and especially I've watched film from this national championship game about 9 to 10 times, and when Jonah Williams went down in the second half of that game, this is your starting left tackle. This is your, all SEC, All-American type of player. This was a former 5-star out of California. And here comes Alex Leatherwood, freshman from Pensacola, 6'6", coming to fill his spot. And this young man held his own, giving Tagovailoa every chance in the pocket to make those throws downfield. If Leatherwood can start at left tackle, and you got Jedrick Wills, his buddy, at right tackle, and if by some form of fashion you move Jonah Williams, due to his intelligence, you move Jonah Williams to center, you look at an offensive line that would have Leatherwood at left tackle, Pierschbaker left guard, Jonah Williams center, Matt Womack right guard, Jedrick Wills at right tackle. You got yourself something. That's a serious machine along that offensive line, with Jonah Williams basically calling the shots. That's really, really, really incredible for Brent Key to work with, because you got size, you got experience, you got physicality at both tackle positions, and you've got a center that, according to Raj Pierschbaker, I got a chance to talk to him, Jonah Williams analyzes film as if he's a coach on the field. And when you've got that directing traffic, that's very key along your offensive line.
So you're intrigued by the offensive line. Everybody else is looking at quarterback, but as you mentioned and explained to us, nothing's going to be determined, although we all have Tua Tagovailoa as the starting quarterback based on the national championship game results and performance. Nick Saban's going to play this down to the wire, most likely, unless somebody really takes the reins, and most notably, somebody really just drops the ball. And I don't expect that to happen between a guy that played that well versus a guy that's played 2 full seasons and led 2 teams to national championship games. But you're intrigued by the offensive line. Anything else that catches your eye? Anything else you're looking out for?
Definitely the secondary coming up this year. The secondary, you're losing 6 guys to the National Football League. Of course, we all know them. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Ronnie Harrison, Tony Brown, Anthony Averett, Hootie Jones, and Levi Wallace. All of those guys gone. But you bring back talent. You bring back the experience with Deontay Thompson. Shaheem Carter comes back. Trevon Diggs comes back. Guys like Jarrett Maiden, Xavier McKinney, Daniel Wright, whom I'm very high on Daniel Wright to play in that dime back position. He's 6'1", 187 pounds. But if you can pack on 10 to 15 pounds on this kid and put him at 205 or 210 pounds, then that's a dynamic dime backer in that secondary for Alabama. But also the young guys, Patrick Surtain Jr. You have people already kind of comparing him to Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Armour-Davis, Savion Smith, the JUCO kid who's coming in. Also Eddie Smith, who's a 3-star from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That Fort Lauderdale, Florida area, Alabama's gotten a lot of talent from that area, whether it's Eddie Smith coming in, Eddie Jackson, who's now in the National Football League, also Daniel Wright from that area, also Boyd Anderson High School. So how this secondary can adjust with losing guys to the league, yes, it brings talent back, but also with Deontay Thompson, this is going to be his secondary now. He's the leader. He's learned under Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's learned under, Ronnie Harrison. How much of their cues did he absorb in, and how prepared is he to take ownership of this back five? The secondary will be very interesting.
Mark Rogers TV, together, we are the voice of college football, meaning myself, my media contributors, and also you out there sending in your comments, your questions, and your suggestions. Of course, we provide college football content just about every day for the smart fan. That would be you. We've got Stephen M. Smith on the line from Touchdown Alabama and The Way It Is, Fox 97.9. So, Stephen, as you well know, we've had this conversation way back. One of my favorite topics of the offseason, trying to find and drum up some conversation before spring practice. And this is a good one that gets everybody involved. Okay, Alabama football, illustrious history. So you can take this in any time frame that you want, whether it's all time, whether it's just during your span of being an Alabama fan and covering the team. But your best win, your favorite win, doesn't necessarily have to be a championship game. Just whatever is your favorite win.
See, my favorite win. Let's see. My favorite win doesn't have to be a championship win. Okay, my favorite win would have to be the 2008 Alabama-Georgia game between the hedges. That would be my favorite one because it really it was Saban's first recruiting class, first big recruiting class. I got a chance to see Julio Jones up close, what the hype was all about with him, Marcel Darius. I think Mark Ingram got a couple of touches that game. So that 2008 Alabama-Georgia game really brought Nick Saban as the Alabama coach to the forefront and got fans buying into, maybe we do have something here. Maybe we didn't need to get Rich Rodriguez. Maybe we didn't need to go out there and get Bobby Bowden. Maybe Saban is the guy. So for 2008 Alabama-Georgia between the hedges, I mean, what a game that was. Georgia had some studs that year. You talk Matthew Stafford, A.J. Green, Nosha Marino. Boy, did they have studs on that team. But that win in 2008, that was good.
So that was the first glimpse of the dynasty, that there could be something special in Tuscaloosa.
Absolutely.
All right, Stephen, we're going to line you up for the most excruciating loss, most crushing loss to you personally during your time as an Alabama beat writer and fan.
Most excruciating loss, as much as I want to go to especially I want to go to the Auburn Alabama Cam Newton edition game. I'm gonna have to go to the 2013 kick six moment, and what made it so excruciating is kind of twofold. Part one is the most obvious one. AJ McCarron has a chance to achieve a three-peat, something that the great USC teams under Pete Carroll could not do, and AJ McCarron right there on the threshold of doing that. It does not pan out, and then the second part of that was, where were the athletes on the field? Nick Saban, the only athlete on the field that could have possibly tackled Chris Davis, was the punter, Cody Mandel, and bless his heart, he ran himself out of the play, and all you got is the 300-pound man trying to find the Gatorade and couldn't find it because they're trying to chase Chris Davis. And Chris Davis, boy, got down the field and scored, and Auburn got that win, and Alabama the chance of a three-peat not there, and the frustrations on my face in the Smith household. We're not happy. We're not happy at all because of trying to figure out why could Alabama just play for overtime. But Nick Saban. Nick Saban wants to try to win right then, and that was the legend of Adam Griffith being born in a bad way because he's known for missing that kick in the Iron Bowl, but that was not his fault. If Cade Foster makes one of his 3 field goals, Adam Griffith is not called upon. And, Griff tries to make the best of his career, and he did some good things. He really did. But that kick six really kind of sticks in the back of his mind like, man, that was my first audition in the Alabama football, and that's how it happens.
And Auburn made it quite a game at the national championship game against Jameis Winston and company as a big underdog, double digit, close to it, something in that range, 10-point underdog, and took it down to the last few seconds. But man, in Alabama, Florida State, Jameis Winston, and all the firepower they had, that would have been possibly an epic national championship game to close out the BCS era.
I mean, the BCS era was great, but that loss in 2013, that was crushing, man. Just watching Coach Nick jog off that field, and then the culmination of that with losing to Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, Trevor Knight and company, and you had all the concerns. Is Nick Saban underachieving? Of course, we all sit and watch the TV channels, and they drum up with these hypotheticals. Nick Saban only this many championships in this many years. Do we see a slacking, a complacency in the works? And, of course, Nick will come back and have his team back in the conversation for another shot to win a title. But the Alabama-Georgia from 2008, that was great. Beautiful win there. And then the Alabama-Auburn 2013 Iron Bowl loss, that was the soul-crushing one for me.
Mark Rogers, TV Talking Alabama Football. We are the voice of college football, along with our dozens and dozens of media contributors. And, of course, your voice from you, the fan, the viewer, your comments, suggestions, and your questions. We've got Stephen M. Smith on the line from Touchdown Alabama. Join him on a show the way it is, Fox 97.9. All right, Stephen, this is obvious that we're in a period of college football history in which Nick Saban is gunning for history. Each and every year, he is looking to measure his resume. He not necessarily, but we, the pundits, looking to measure his resume against Bear Bryant. So that is the argument, obviously, that's out there right now. But I'm going to take it away from that. You can certainly include those two gentlemen. But your favorite Alabama coach, not necessarily the best, but your favorite Alabama coach.
My favorite Alabama coach, and I know a lot of Alabama fans are going to look at me as if I'm half crazy. As much as I do enjoy Saban, my favorite coach was actually Mike Shula. Shula was actually my favorite coach, and just the way he was able to handle everything. He did much with little, and it's not all Shula's fault. He came in a situation where you had so much loss of scholarships. You could not recruit the guys you could get, and he kind of came in as the scapegoat where, Alabama had to just get through the dark days with Shula and then be able to find a way to land a bigger name. Fortunately, that name ended up being Nick Saban, but how Shula was able to love and appreciate and value the players. And 2005 was such a major year. You think if Tyrone Prothro does not get hurt Alabama possibly wins a national championship in '05, because that team offensively with Prothro and Ken Darby and Brody Kroll and receivers like Keith Brown and DJ Hall. You had a defense that had Freddie Roach and D'Amico Ryans, Rudy Griffin, Roman Harper, Simeon Castilla, Charlie Peppera. You had a kicker in Jamie Christensen that, though his kicks coming off his foot may not have always been pretty, but they always went through the goalposts. He was a very accurate leg, Jamie Christensen was. So that '05 team was a team that was very, very talented and pretty much could have won a national championship hadn't Tyrone Prothro gotten hurt. So favorite coach to me, Mike Shula, and how he was able to just deal with all the negatives that was on the field around him at that time, and how he was able to work, how he was able to perform much with little.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate for Mike Shula as you run through what could have been in 2005 and what was still based on the record, finishing in the top 10 in the nation in the final poll, finishing 10-2, winning the Cotton Bowl. An excellent season for the program in what it had been through in the previous few years. And then he just has the one down year at 6-6, and he's out the door. And who knows what would have happened with Mike Shula. Certainly he would not have performed any better than Nick Saban, but certainly having one really good season followed by a 6-6 campaign, not a disaster, but a 6-6 campaign, certainly not a disaster considering what had happened at Alabama the previous few years. What he would have done with the program, we'll never know. All right, Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama breaking things down as we kick around a little off-season discussion concerning favorite win, most crushing loss, favorite coach. Now we get to the favorite player category. So this isn't, again, necessarily a legendary status guy, but anybody that you in particular find intriguing, or somebody that you really rooted for.
Somebody I really rooted for, favorite player. Give me Kenyon Drake. Favorite player to me, give me Kenyon Drake. And the reason why I say this is, for Kenyon Drake, he was always that talented guy, but it took him a while, attitude-wise, to buy into the program. And you have a lot of those. You have a lot of those players. You have a lot of those kids that they come in, they have all the talent in the world, but they got a bit of that rebel mentality in them. You got to kind of show them that you mean business. And Kenyon Drake was one of those guys. And 2012, 2013, just very explosive guy. Had a higher yards per carry average than TJ Yeldon, but seemed to always be in Saban's doghouse, quote unquote. He was always just there, standing beside Nick, like, Coach, can I play? And Nick's like, you think you're going to play, huh? No, you ain't playing. He's always just standing beside Nick, anticipating going out there, and Coach Saban now putting Kenyon Drake out there. And I remember in 2014, it finally started to click off season for Kenyon about just having the right character. Yes, you can be a talented player, but you got to have the character in mind also. So it was when he finally was able to have that character in line, he 2014 really started to break out and blossom and have a successful season until, of course, the Ole Miss game came in and had the gruesome broken leg injury. Comes back, rehabs his way back, and 2015. I mean, what a year he had in 2015. Now, yes, of course, he had some moments where he was pressing a bit, but he goes to the Cotton Bowl against Michigan State and had a whale of a game, was right there stride for stride with Derrick Henry, and then the national championship game to polish it all up, the 95-yard kick return touchdown, scores in the end zone, one of the more pivotal plays to beat Clemson in the first matchup between Alabama and the Tigers, and then parlay that into being drafted by the Miami Dolphins. He's right now the lead featured back for the franchise. So Kenyon Drake, just him coming in, having the talent, but having to learn the character, battling some adversity. Kenyon Drake for me.
And you tied it up there at the end because I was thinking the same thing. Here's a guy that had to pick his spots, had his issues off the field, and that certainly impacted what he was able to do on the field. Then he had the big injury. And so all that really compromised his collegiate career, although when he was given the opportunity and he was right, wow, he was electric. And now he gets to the NFL and turns out to be an impact player and has really found a home in Miami. It's impressive to see.
It really is, and now he's got a chance next season to really kind of shelter more of the load as a back, and not only as a back, but also Drake does some things in the kick return, punt return aspect. I can catch the ball in the slot. He's a very diverse player, very very versatile, and Miami very happy to have him. Can he continue to stay healthy? Is the big thing, and hopefully lead Miami to a couple of playoff appearances and maybe a Super Bowl down the road. But right now, for me, just because of his stick-to-itiveness, his perseverance, his drive, and then being able to finally get the character aspect in check is one thing that I can surely appreciate about having Kenyon Drake at Alabama.
All right, Stephen M. Smith doing some heavy lifting for us today, talking Alabama football. Join him on Touchdown Alabama, also his show, Fox 97.9, The Way It Is. Stephen, we know you got a ton going on. We appreciate you stopping by.
No problem, Mark. Thank you, guys. And get back to that number crunching, man. You got some heavy number crunching going on.
You know, we certainly did. I didn't want to turn around and intimidate you with a big board and start asking you about Big 10 or Big 12. I think I had on the board there, Big 12 football metrics. That may be for another time.
All right, man. I appreciate it.